This video is sponsored by Sega Atlus. Metaphor ReFantazio is no short of incredible stories and characters, and the complex themes of overcoming injustice in a deeply divided and antagonistic populace is perhaps no better reflected among the primary cast than the Royal Knight herself, Hulkenberg. Underneath her stoic and formal exterior resides a slew of endearing quirks, such as her fondness for unusual foods and her comically strict training regimens. And even deeper lie some profoundly deep insecurities she seeks to overcome throughout the length of Metaphor ReFantazio, making Hulkenberg one of the most likable and relatable characters in Atlus's vast landscape of JRPGs. Join me as we take a look at Hulkenberg, one of Atlus's very best characters from their newest role-playing masterpiece, diving deep into why she is such an incredible character that best represents the story and themes of Metaphor ReFantazio. We're diving into her backstory, her gameplay, and archetype progression, and her role in the storyline and follower ranks here. So if you're a fan of Hulkenberg and Metaphor ReFantazio, thrust your halberd at that like button and comment down below your thoughts on the game and its characters. And without further ado, let's dive into Hulkenberg's rich backstory.
My name is Aislinn Pacelli Majal Hulkenberg. I am knight, I am commander, at last of the honor gods!
Aislinn Pacelli Majal Hulkenberg, or simply Hulkenberg, is as proud and brave in her role as a royal knight as she is in her lust for consuming exotic, often eyebrow-raising delicacies. Fun fact, the name Hulkenberg literally means hulking mountain in German. Additionally, her first name, Aislinn, is derived from the German word Eisel, meaning iron, and Schill, meaning armor. Quite appropriate, as Hulkenberg is one of the most powerful characters in Metaphor ReFantazio with her Knight Archetype branch. Her etymology is also a fitting metaphor for her persona in the game. See what I did there? A member of the Roussainte Tribe, her kind hail primarily from the Principality of Montario in the United Kingdom of Ukrainia, as not only are the Roussainte well equipped to resist the chill of this frigid mountainous region, but so too is their determination and bravery to lead on the battlefield, as the tribe is well known in assuming leadership roles in the military. Just like the Roussainte, Hulkenberg's character design features long, protruding ears with a tall, lean physique, exuding confidence and authority wherever she goes. And while her stoic exterior showcases the tribe's highly athletic and prideful nature, deep down, Hulkenberg endures a deep pain that eats away at her throughout the length of Metaphor ReFantazio, revealing one of the most well-realized and relatable characters in not just the game, but in all of Atlus's defining JRPGs. Hulkenberg hails from a prestigious noble family in Montario, and while her family achieved much fame and praise from their roles in politics, Hulkenberg was deemed an outcast, as despite her family's opposition, she pursued a career as a knight due to her expertise in combat and weaponry. Burdened by the disapproval of her family, Hulkenberg channeled her strength and determination to her craft and quickly rose through the ranks of knighthood, where she once served as a member of the Royal Knights. Alongside longtime ally Quirkiest, the two served to protect the royal prince when one day, the prince was attacked by a mysterious assailant, leaving a crippling wound on the royal prince. The grief and shame Hulkenberg experienced from her inability to protect the prince and fend off her attacker overwhelmed her with a sense of failure, and it was this guilt, along with her shame from being ostracized by her family, that constantly eats at her throughout the duration of Metaphor ReFantazio. With the prince having mysteriously disappeared and with no family to return to, Hulkenberg decided to search for the prince alone and defeated. This brings us to the start of the game, where, while Hulkenberg becomes integrated into the protagonist party after the 4th or 5th hour, we get our first glimpses of the powerful, red-haired Roussainte in one of the first cutscenes in the game. Seen traveling in a caravan on the way to the royal capital Grand Trad alongside other travelers, including the protagonist and his fairy Gallica, the carriage suddenly comes under attack by a group of bandits who are believers of Louise Guillabert, the game's primary antagonist. At first cooperating with the robbery, after witnessing the death of an innocent traveler at the hands of one of the robbers, we see firsthand just how powerful and witty Hulkenberg is, as she draws steel and slays the offending robber with ease, presumably making quick work of the other robbers as the protagonist is thrown down the side of a cliff. It is here that we see Hulkenberg rise rise to confront injustice head-on. A welcome act to see when so many in the United Kingdom of Uchronia keep their heads down and take every insult, violent act, and injustice thrown at them so as not to ruffle any feathers. Late into the prologue of the game, during the royal funeral of Quirkiest, we see Hulkenberg offer her aid in infiltrating the Regolith Grand Cathedral to reclaim it from Louise and the twisted necromancer Zorba. It is here in this cathedral, after nearly losing her life to an undead Quirkiest, thanks to Zorba's necromancy, where she awakens to her knight archetype. Empowered with the belief that the royal prince is still alive, Hulkenberg becomes overcome with a renewed purpose in her life. A purpose to expose the heinous crimes of Louise Guilloburn, find and cure the royal prince, and ensure a prosperous Uchronia for all its tribes by electing a leader with the qualities that benefit a just ruler. Now, I know that's a lot of exposition for a character, but this deep complexity to Hulkenberg reflects the beautiful and oppressive, yet highly mature narrative of Metaphor ReFantazio and its themes. Our stoic, loyal, and formal to a fault Hulkenberg is as powerfully loyal to protecting the protagonist on his journey across Uchronia as her massive halberd reflected in her knight archetype. Her damage and support-heavy gameplay as a knight greatly complements the protagonist's dynamic seer archetype, with the knight archetype able to grow in time to become the most robust archetype, sporting the most variations of any archetype in the game. The knight archetype path begins with the knight before becoming the magic knight, and then branching off to both the paladin and dark knight archetype, resulting in an incredible amount of permutations that players can tinker with within this archetype. While every party member is able to utilize all archetypes within the knight branch and other archetypes for that matter, what I find so revealing about the progression of the knight archetype in general is that it truly reflects Hulkenberg and her journey in the game. With both the Paladin and Dark Knight archetypes reflecting the almighty and heroic, and dark and vengeful characteristics respectively, they provide effective counterbalances to her personality in that she lives her existence as a faithful and orderly guard to the protagonist, while also not hesitating twice to go absolutely bananas on those who betray her or the vision of the group. Throughout the main story and her bond links, we see Hulkenberg embody each of these archetypes as she attempts to reclaim the honor she believes she once possessed. This emotional payoff players get as they reach the end stages of the game is profound, as each trial Hulkenberg and her party overcomes reveals more and more about the steps she needs to take to achieve her true purpose in life, one that she unknowingly was participating in as she rightfully claims her title as a true royal knight. This gameplay progression with the evolution of Hulkenberg's archetypes is what I believe to be the best handled sequence of archetype growth across the game's cast, and is truly emblematic of the growth she encounters along the way. Just as Metaphor ReFantazio's story and progression of archetypes punctuate the growth of Hulkenberg throughout the game, so too does her follower rank storyline, which is profoundly important to unlocking the latter knight archetypes. Atlus crafted a memorable follower storyline here with Hulkenberg, as she begins by setting up the story of how she would sneak off into the night as a new royal guard to spar with her former comrade, who would later become her close rival, Roussainte. Coincidentally bumping into Roussainte in Grand Trad with the protagonist, she learns that Roussainte has become a senile and flippant commander of the Royal Knights, as his foul language and condescending tone to the protagonist because he is an Elda propels Hulkenberg to take action in her own hands and prepare herself across the course of the game to duel Roussainte in a battle of honor and character. Each follower rank, we see the tenacity of Hulkenberg, as even though she so clearly hurts from the betrayal of who her former ally has now become, she is able to push through her mental obstacles, thanks in part to the companionship of the protagonist, to train and honorably overcome the abuse of Roussainte in their final spar. It's an awesome documentation of her growth throughout the game and appropriately accommodates the various key moments in the main storyline that center around injustices and the abuse of power, like with what transpired in Martyra with Joanna, and showing appropriate restraint and care when handling the delicate matter of the ritual in Etria. Outside of her bond links, Hulkenberg is just a joy to have around in the party, as her rigid formalities from her upbringing and status as a guard to the prince give way to some of the most comical parts of the game, namely showcasing Hulkenberg's complete and utter lust for strange and unusual delicacies.
You've nothing to fear. Truly, I find most living things are edible.
You need higher standards, lady.
Hulkenberg will eat just about anything, as she makes very apparent, and it's her lust for adventure and openness to trying new foods that gives her sustenance to stomach the highs and lows that the party must overcome in Metaphor ReFantazio. She's like that firm, by-the-books do-gooder in your party that always manages to endear you by offsetting her strict formalities with absurd quirks and unintentional hilarity, and that's what makes her such an unforgettable character in Metaphor ReFantazio. Hulkenberg perfectly personifies her namesake. She is a hulking mountain that protects everything she holds dear to her, and while she underwent incredible trials and trauma throughout her journey in Metaphor ReFantazio, she emerged from it all a stronger, better, more hulking royal knight than the knight that came before her. No amount of rain was able to weather Hulkenberg. Through her growth throughout not only just the main story and her relationship to the protagonist and accompanying cast, but also the evolution of her archetypes and follower bonds, we see a stronger Hulkenberg as her growth leads her to one of the most full circle moments in an Atlus JRPG. And as great as Hulkenberg is, so too is the exceptional rest of the cast of Metaphor ReFantazio. So share with me in the comments what you have to say about Hulkenberg and the game in general. For those of you who have yet to play the game, do yourself a favor and try the lengthy demo available for PS4, PS5, Xbox One and Xbox Series X and S, and Steam. And if you decide to pick it up, this will be some of the best 100 hours you will spend on a game, especially if you are a fan of Atlus's Persona series. Speaking of Persona, join me over in this video as I break down why fans of Persona ought to try Metaphor ReFantazio, as Metaphor truly represents a fresh evolution of the Persona formula we all love so dearly. That's all I have for you in this one, my friends. I look forward to seeing you all real soon in the next video.